All right, first and foremost, I want to give call hello, Yahweh Shemi Hawashai. It's all praises to the Most High God. The name is only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. It's your brother, Taz upon you by Yahweh, from the Sakari Chicago sect. Back at you with another video, inspired through the spirit and truth. Yahweh Shemi Hawashai. Want to do a continuation from the last video I dropped when I went into Deuteronomy 28 and 41. About how we would go through these curses, and one of these in particular curses that was that our children will go into captivity and we wouldn't enjoy them. Well, when I say I mean when we were our ancestors, right? Because we know we're just regenerated spirits. But I'm gonna bring it out again, then I'm gonna get another scripture, you know what I'm saying, that backs this up, basically precept, and then we're gonna get into the article. Because this curse has taken on many forms. You know, at first it was, you know, we went on slave ships and then they split the families up. But then over time, you know, chattel slavery stopped, but they had something to take its place. And it was a transracial adoption, when basically they would let a lot of Edomites, so-called white people, you know, adopt our kids, man. You know, a lot of Edomites was out here adopting Native American kids, as well as so-called black kids. You know, and they were also making it hard for other Israelites, for other Israelite families to get these Israelite children. You know, they solely wanted to, you know, have the white man, woman, and child have us. You know, so I'm gonna get into the scriptures first, and then we're gonna get into the article. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, meaning, you know, we will birth them, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity, right? So let me just get another verse. Let me skip to Deuteronomy 28 and 32. Okay, Deuteronomy 28 and 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, right? And thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand, right? So this is another verse saying that, you know, when it comes down to our children, that they will be given to another people. So now let's get into the article. Skip that. Salakia, bear with me. Here we go. Boom. Okay, this is a history of transracial adoption, right? Placement across racial lines, which almost involve non-white children and white adults. Challenge matching by suggesting that visible difference was compatible with love and belonging. During the first half of the century, anecdotes about children of color accidentally placed with white parents circulated in journalism, fiction, and professional literature. With few exceptions, these stories was considered tragic and shocking. The problem of racial mix-ups in adoption illustrated an important point. Most Americans believed in the naturalness of race matching, but race matching could be very difficult to achieve, so it was not all natural in the sense of being automatic. In practice, color confusion was common, and parents and social workers alike expressed deep concern about how to categorize mixed race children for the purpose of matching. Now, we know the concept of you being mixed, that's a modern concept, that's not biblical. You know, we have many examples of Israelite kids that have heathen mothers, so meaning their father is an Israelite. You know, when it comes down to Moses, for example, right? His children, they wasn't called Israelite Egyptians. You know, you just saw what your father is, man. You know, so there's really no such thing as mixed. So the mixed kids that they're talking about in this article, for the most part, are Israelite children, you know, going through these curses. Because we know the curses really only pertain to Israelites, you know. I mean, now, in the case of you being a tear, or a child being a tear, meaning he has a Jake mom and a Jake mom and a heathen father, you know, they may, you know, go through a couple of curses here and there, because they're 9 times out of 10 they're under if they're under their mom's roof, because their mom's an Israelite, you know, so they're going to share a little bit of that. But for the most part, this is talking about those mixed babies that are going to get the bulk of the curses is the Israelite children, you know, from an Israelite father. But anyway, back to the article. Making families interracial on purpose was the point of most international adoptions from Asian countries such as Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, as well as adoptions arranged by the Indian Adoption Project after 1945. Let's go into the Indian Adoption Project, right? Okay. Administered by the Child Welfare League of America and funded by a federal contract from the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the U.S. Children's Bureau. The Indian Adoption Project lasted from 1958 through 1967. During an era when matching dominated adoption practice, it placed 395 Native American children from 16 Western states with white families in Illinois, Indiana, New York, Massachusetts, Missouri, and other states in the Eastern Midwest. Only 14 children were adopted by Southern families, and 1 child was adopted in Puerto Rico. Approximately 50 public and private adoption agencies cooperated with the project, but the largest number of children were placed by agencies that were leaders in African American adoptions and services to children of color. Louise Wise Services and Spence Chapin Adoption Services, both of New York, and the Children's Bureau of Delaware. You know, I'm not going to keep reading this whole thing because this is a pretty lengthy article, but just to get the point, let's go back to it. It placed 395 Native American children from 16 Western states with white families, man. You know, so this transracial adoption thing, it wasn't only a curse just for the so-called Southern Kingdom, which is the blacks, West Indians, blacks and West Indians, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. This also happened to the Native American man, the Northern Kingdom. You know, your Seminole Indians and your Native American Indians. You know, this happened, man. And people need to realize that, you know. So let me go back. Just had to go into that right quick so we can see what the Indian Adoption Act was. Salakia, let me get back to where I was. Okay, I'll just start from right here. Making families interracial on purpose was the point of most international adoptions from Asian countries such as Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, as well as adoptions arranged by the Indian Adoption Project after 1945. Attitudes towards these transracial placements reproduced the historical color line in the United States, which was emphatically black and white. White parents were more likely to accept yellow, red, or even brown children. Those who took in black children were considered the most transgressive, which, you know, they talking about yellow, red, and even brown. I mean, we are brown, man. You know, so-called black people are brown. You know, so that whole black thing, man, is madness, man. But anyway, which is another curse, you know, proverb, byword, whatever. Anyway, children were considered the most transgressive. After World War II, demographic pressures shaped this trend at least as powerfully as civil rights ideology. New contraceptive technology like the pill, legalized abortion after Roe v. Wade, and the sexual revolution all decreased the supply of healthy white infants, along with the stigma surrounding illegitimacy. Okay, the result was the result was that some white parents reconsidered their preference for same-race adoptions. Black children and white parents have always defined the debate about transracial adoption, achieving a symbolic importance that overshadowed their tiny numbers, right? So basically, you know, the white man and the white woman, you know, their children, you know, that they were decreasing, man. They were decreasing. So they said, you know what? You know, let's go get these little strong, you know, black and brown babies, man. Let's go take, you know what I'm saying, these people's kids, you know, because the white man is the goddamn devil, man. You know, and they're weak. Esau is weak, man. You know, an example of them being weak and not naturally strong like us is when it came down to the U.S. cavalry. How did they take out Gad, the Native American Indian? They had to go use Gatling guns, man. Without those guns, they wouldn't have been able to prevail over Gad, man. You know? But anyway, back to the article. Black children and white parents have always defined the debate about transracial adoption, achieving a symbolic importance that overshadowed their tiny numbers. After Loving v. Virginia, a 1967 Supreme Court case that made laws prohibiting racial intermarriage unconstitutional, some states, such as Louisiana, continue to ban transracial adoptions. Family making between blacks and whites was invariably what these statutes aim to prevent. Okay, either at their peak around 1970, perhaps 2,500 such adoptions were finalized each year, and no more than 12,000 African American children in all were placed with white homes before 1975. Researchers, policymakers, and child welfare professionals carefully scrutinized these adoptions in hopes of discovering whether interracial families helped or hurt children, and how outcome studies rarely showed that children's development or identity were positively harmed. But they still could not answer the most important question: was transracial adoption a socially desirable or undesirable policy in a society dictated to pluralism, Salakia, but also polarized by racial strife, right? Okay, determined would be parents were usually the impetus in the first black-white adoptions. Interestingly, they often lived in overwhelmingly white parts of the country. The first recorded adoption of African-American child placed in a white home took place in Minnesota in 1948. In Washington, a white couple, the Johnstons, took an African-American child into foster care in 1944 when she was only 6 weeks old, and adopted her against the advice of their social worker. So the social worker wasn't even on board with this, man. This went against the social worker, man. Okay? When she was 9, campaigns during the 1950s to promote African-American adoptions inspired other white couples to inquire about transracial adoption. Worn down by the discrimination that made it difficult to find enough same-race parents for all the children of color, indeed, a few agencies began cautiously placing mixed race and African-American children in white homes. Some, but not all, of these families became targets of violence and harassment. You see that? You see that, man? And when it's talking about, when it says African-American and mixed race children, that's talking about the Native Americans, as well as the Native American children, as well as the Latin, so-called Latin tribes, man, the Latin tribes children, you know, and we can see that what had happened, man. You place these Jake kids in a white home and they get abused and harassed, man. You know, that's that perpetual hatred that Esau was made to have against us, man, according to the will of the Most High. Okay. A program of Children's Home Society of Minnesota called PAMI, Parents to Adopt Minority Youngsters, found that it first such placements in the early 1960s were blessedly uneventful. Transracial adoptions were only a little revolution, concluded project director Harriet Fricke in relief. Black children were kin, not projects in racial reconciliation or pawns in racial conflict. The debate about transracial adoption changed course in 1972 when the National Association of Black Social Workers issued a statement that took a vehement statement against the placement of black children in white homes for any reason, calling transracial adoption unnatural, artificial, unnecessary, and proof that African Americans continue to be assigned to chattel status. You know, so they knew this was just slavery by another name, man. Chattel status, chattel slavery, you know? Okay? The organization was so committed to the position that black children's healthy development depended on having black parents that its president, Sini J. Williams, argued that temporary foster and even institutional placements were preferable to adoption by white families. This adoption slowed black and white adoptions to a trickle in 1973. The Child Welfare League of America adoption standards, which had been revised in 1968 to make them slightly friendlier to transracial adoption, were written to clarify that same-race placements were always better. The child welfare establishment never supported transracial adoptions. Okay? A number of new agencies staffed almost entirely by African Americans, such as Homes for Black Children in Detroit and Harlem, Dowling Children's Service in New York, renewed the effort that had started in the late 1940s and 1950s to find black homes for black children. In spite of successful efforts to boost the numbers of black adoptive families, objections to whites adopting African American children were never translated into law. Minority group rights to children were legally enforceable only in the case of Native American children, and only after 1978 passage of the Indian Child Welfare Act. So, you know, the Native American has welfare, and so does the so-called black family, man. It's a damn curse, man. You know? But, you know, a lot of you niggas out there that don't want to claim the Native American, don't want to claim the Seminole Indian, you know, and don't want to claim the Latins, man, you niggas are bugged out. Y'all going through the same damn thing. And that's the whole inspiration for this video, man. You know? That's why we bring out these curses, you know, that both kingdoms are going through. You know, so the unlearned can learn, man. You know? We can't be ashamed to inform the unwise, like Sirach says, man. Okay? And a lot of you niggas are unwise and unlearned on this matter, man. Because y'all are colorblind as hell, man. You niggas are color struck. Salakia, that's what I meant to say. You niggas are color struck, man. All y'all see is color, man. Or physical features. You know? Y'all not testing spirits. You know? Y'all not even matching up the curses, man. You know? Y'all think everything only happens to, you know, dark-skinned people. You know? Or people that's, you know what I'm saying, dark brown. You know? But back to the article, man. Since 1972, the numbers of black and white adoptions have declined. But this may have as much to do with stubborn private preferences and prejudices among white adopters as with organized opposition or public policies that created new barriers to transracial placements. International adoptions, after all, increased quite dramatically at just a moment when the transracial adoption of African American children was becoming controversial. They continued to accelerate throughout the 1970s, 80s, and 1990s, when Americans adopted more than 250,000 foreign children. Okay? And when it says foreign children, we do know that Israel is scattered throughout the four corners, man. So a lot of these children that they're calling foreign, mostly a lot of them are Israelites as well, man. You know, being placed with these heathen, with these heathen foster parents, man. You know. Back to the article. International placements have increased much more dramatically than domestic transracial adoptions. Why? There are many reasons, but a simple one stands out. Most children have come from Asia, Eastern Europe, and Latin America. You see that? Asia, Eastern Europe, and Latin America. They did not represent the specific kind of difference that had bothered Americans and had tortured their history most. Children adopted from overseas were not black. Now, what the hell is black, man? See, you got to read these articles and chew the meat and spit out the bones, man. You know, why did they try to make that a factor? Oh, they wasn't black. You know, because just like a lot of you niggas are so color struck, so is the damn world, man. You know, these crackers are color struck. You Negroes are color struck. Some of y'all, you know. How the hell you gonna say these kids, you know, wasn't of the lineage of colored people because they're high yellow or something, man? You know, or because they don't look like your typical, what you would call dark skinned, you know, so-called black man. That's crazy, man. You know, and I guarantee those children from Latin America, you know, most of those are Israelites, man. You know, all different shades of brown, man. You know, so I just wanted to bring this out, you know, and I'm gonna go back to the scripture, then I'm gonna close out. So this was just another way that our children would be snatched from us and we wouldn't be able to enjoy them, you know, because they caught up in the system, man. You know, the Native Americans couldn't enjoy their children, and neither could you so-called black people, man. Nor the Latin American mother and father, man. Because they was what? They was a part of they was under the Indian Child Welfare Act, you know, and transracial adoptions, you know, and these things, you know, these two curses of being on welfare and our children being given to, you know, the white man and woman through transracial adoption, that happened to both kingdoms. And people need to understand that, man. So let me get back to the scriptures, then I'm going to close out. This is Deuteronomy 28:32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given to another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand. You know, there was nothing that the black man, so-called brown man, there was nothing that you could do, you know, after they took their kids from you, man. It was, you didn't have no power over that situation, man, you know, because you was under the curses, man. The scriptures say that the curse is going to follow us, you know, so there was really nothing that you could do. Thus saith the scriptures, man, you know. So let me go back to Deuteronomy. This is 28:41. Then we're going to close out. Deuteronomy 28:41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. You know, and captivity doesn't only take the form of you having a yoke of iron around your neck, man. You know, we also just went into another facet of captivity, which is transracial adoptions, man. You know. So with that, I want to give call halal Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai and say shalom.